Welcome everyone to the World's 2023 quarterfinals for one last time, live from the Sajik Indoor Gymnasium in Busan, South Korea. Today is such a big day because it is the LCK's very last chance at the World Championship as T1 takes on the LPL's LNG and Scout, as we see him there, for the final spot in the semifinals. It's going to be such a huge mountain to climb for T1 if we look at how difficult it will be to get to the finals, but it all starts right here. They can't drop the ball on them.
I know, it's going to be so much pressure on them, though, to try and keep those LCK hopes alive, to try and keep the pride of their region there. But I mean, it kind of feels poetic in a way that that mantle does fall to T1.
Faker, please! You're our only hope! Faker One Kenobi! He's the only thing standing between us and a full LPL semifinals.
Crazy. My name is Shox. I'm here at the desk for this day with Emily, with Dagda, and with Kobe. I think depending on where you fall on the spectrum of fandom, right? There's millions of LPL fans who'd be very happy with that. But I do agree. We want that big upset story, the one LCK team, hopefully against all of them. It's just too good. How did we get here? Well, yesterday, JDG played KT, and we had someone very invested right next to me. But unfortunately, it was kind of what we expected, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, this... And as we watch Night with this, like, massive Pop Blossom, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm a KT fan. And while I am used to this, you'd think I'd be used to the heartbreak, but, you know, I still feel a little bit poorly about it. I do think, honestly, like, I thought we were going to a Game 5, and then this play happened. You know, Ruler just absolutely pops off after this. It was really cool to see from JDG. I mean, JDG are such a strong team. I do think they showcased in this matchup why they are considered such massive tournament favorites.
I do think, though, that KT did themselves proud. I think they did an incredible job yesterday of, like, in game number one, having that split push composition, out team fighting JDG with that style as well. And then, as you say, it felt like game 4. We were destined to go to that game 5. KT put up such a massive showing against the tournament favorites.
Doesn't make it feel better.
My favorite part, too, about the last game is that we do so many segments where we're deep diving. JDG are the masters of team fighting. Look how they peel for their magnificent carries. Everyone's blocking for them, creating space. That last fight was just Ruler and Knight.
Yes.
There was no peeling. There was nobody creating space for them.
Yeah, KT was creating space.
True, the vision control was creating space. And the funniest thing to me, you know, we're always looking at the mechanics and everything, but Knight also, he picked the Dark Star skin for Orianna, which makes it purple, like Syndra, and hiding the Orianna ball, like all these little things to min-max. I love trying to squeeze out those little advantages.
Yeah, and JDG were the biggest favorites, and they still are. We saw that other teams, of course, dropped out. We saw the bracket just a second ago. Gen.G didn't make it, but we have JDG remaining. I do want to take a look at a graphic we've shown a couple of times already in terms of the LPL versus the LCK. Historically, why is the LPL so successful this year, we think?
I'll go first. So I think I want to go back to something that I was talking about with Clement Chu, who used to be one of the casters on LPL English, but he also did a ton of translations, and I worked with him as a journalist. And I was talking to him in 2019, so the FPX year, about just the mentality of a lot of LPL teams. And I think one thing that I will absolutely credit LPL teams for, especially in their scrim environments, is they are not afraid to make mistakes. Like, there was a point in the LPL where, like, scrims were actually so crazy that there might not have been a lot you could glean from them in terms of improving. And that's changed since then. But I do think that attitude of, like, we are willing to make mistakes and learn from them and not get bogged down by them is really instrumental in a lot of these matches, especially when there is a lot of pressure, because you see an LPL team make a mistake and you'll notice that a lot of these teams, they will not actually get fazed by it and they will still try incredibly high risk, high reward plays going forward in that same match.
I love this point too, because so long throughout the history of League of Legends, it's been a difficulty for coaches to be able to set up specific things to practice But LPL teams go into scrims to practice a specific piece. They don't tell you about it, and they like hide everything else. I think that's how you get the most out of these scrims and don't give away too much to your opponents.
I think as well it kind of lends itself to the fact that I think LPL teams are more willing to take that risk in a game where they're like, hey, look, we can make this mistake. It's not going to come back to bite us as hard. And you'll see them take the 35-65% play, where it's like, hey, it's kind of catching people off guard. You're not expecting them to be in the positions they are. And we see it a lot with players like Missing yesterday, where he's like sending it. If he gets caught, that could be the entire game over. But he's willing to put himself in that position and take the blame, but to potentially make that game-winning fight as well.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I'll highlight about LPL teams specifically is a lot of times when we look at how they're choosing their fights, we talk about, okay, why are you fighting over nothing? That's not how any of these teams see it. They're always fighting for something. They're fighting for cooldowns. They're fighting around item spikes and that specific stuff. So that's another thing I think I can credit the LPL specifically for and the way they see the game.
And I think it's only really we're starting to see that now, because if you look at what's on your screens at the moment, this time last year, it was a very different story. We had one LPL team that was in there, that was JDG, and immediately they got knocked out in semis by T1. I think it's kind of a long, drawn-out combat to get to the position that they're in, where they are learning from their mistakes, where they're taking all the learnings that they had from last year and now implementing them this year.
Yeah, LCK was so good. The meta also plays such a big part in it. Last year, you know, the Akali Sylas meta, they had the master of it, and they made it all the way through. And then this year, meta's been pretty stable for JDG, and iron sharpens iron in the LPL. Having JDG, this super team there to actually lead the way has definitely benefited them.
And we'll see if it comes to fruition, because there is still one LCK team there we'll start talking about in just a second, but a bit of a lighter tone to kind of set the mood and maybe tell some of the stories of our teams and our players in a different way. We're going to play a game called Blind Pick. It's basically Who Is It, if you've played that before. So I'm going to write something on the whiteboard. Do you want to start, Kobe?
Fine, sure.
And then you have to guess, and you can only ask,
okay.
what is this,
No,
11, 0, and 3? What have you written down? Okay.
Huh?
You've written down 11, 0, and 3.
That's notes for later.
Okay.
They don't exist anymore, I'm sorry.
You're going to have to remember it.
Okay.
Ooh, okay.
So explain what you're doing. You're writing down a
I'm
player
writing down
name.
a player. You don't know, and you can only ask yes or no questions, and you have to get it.
Okay.
Yes.
Is my player playing today?
No.
No.
Not playing today. Does my player play a carry role?
Kind of.
He does.
Oh, yeah, he does, yeah.
Is my player a top laner?
No.
No.
A jungler?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it a North American player?
No.
No.
Oh, no. It's not playing today. Peanut?
No.
Come on, think about your question.
It's too hard. I give up.
Oh my God. The thing is, I would want to use the joke about choking, but you didn't choke this
Yeah,
yet.
he just gave up.
Okay.
Okay.
Give it back. Oh, yes.
Here you go.
Is this permanent marker? Or?
No, we're good. It's board
Okay, we're
marker.
good.
I'm
Okay,
afraid.
Good.
Well, we're about to find out either way.
Yes. Don't look at that.
Yeah.
Play monitor.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it here, so
Oh,
you guys
that's
can
smart.
see, but I have no idea what's going on.
All
So.
right. Oh, that is
Okay.
smart, actually.
Okay, is it? Do they play on the top side of the map?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Are they a top laner?
Yes.
Okay. Just in case, could be jungler still. Are they playing today?
No.
Okay. Are they from the LPL?
No.
No.
Are they from the West?
Yes.
Are they from the LEC?
No.
No.
Okay.
Come on. It's only people in quarterfinals, so.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only people in quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Is it Dokla?
Yes.
God, sorry. I was blanking for a second.
I know.
The pressure's on.
I know, I start
It's
sweating.
Jesus,
I
yeah.
forgot
I
we
now
had
understand.
I
yeah.
forgot we had a blindfold, but whatever.
fine.
I'm
Whatever.
such a bad games
You're
master.
running this game.
Yes. So Dagda actually got it. So if you get it faster and less questions, you get
Oh,
our crown.
I am running this down.
How many questions did he have?
6.
Did you keep track?
Nailed it. I have a feeling Emily's going to destroy us.
All
though.
right.
No,
Emily's
I'm not.
really good at these games.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
You got it.
Do I play on the bot side of the map?
Yes.
Am I a support?
No.
No.
Am I playing today?
Yes.
Yes.
Am I Gumayusi?
No.
No. There's one other now.
Am I GALA?
Yes.
Oh, and that was 5, so you win the game.
Oh, yay!
You get the crown.
Is this going to stay on my head?
You know.
It does. Okay.
I want it to stay for the entirety of Countdown.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you all for
It's probably
playing.
going to fall off, but we'll see.
A well-needed bit of brevity before we get back into the story of the day, and that is mostly about how for T1, the task ahead of them is absolutely monumental. Only LPL team, starting with LNG today, and if you get through that, well, then you get to play JDG, so it's just insane, Kobe.
Honestly, yeah. But you have to think one step ahead, okay?
Okay.
Just focus on today. It can be daunting looking at the entirety of the top end of the LPL, but one step at a time.
I love the FLICKR Photoshop
Yeah, it's
from
great.
LS.
It's amazing. When it comes to T1, though, as you said already, Dagda, it is kind of poetic that it is T1. That I think it also kind of shows how big the expectations always are on this roster. Even though they have done very well with this iteration of the roster, it isn't enough until they win a world championship, until they win an MSI.
Yeah, and it's a bit heartbreaking to see how many of those finals they have got to. I mean, if FLICKR makes it to this one, it's his 6th international final, or World Finals even coming into this. So I think there's a huge amount of pressure to try and perform and be at that level, especially when you are that final LCK team, and you get to see it here on your screens. I mean, 2017 they hit finals, lose to Samsung Galaxy. Last year against DRX in what was supposed to be the moment for T1, they fall short just again, and now they need to make it the full distance if they hope to hold on to those LCK hopes.
And yeah, one thing you will note there is that T1 have actually never been eliminated by an LPL team before in a knockout round like this. That is also by virtue of the fact that this is the first year we finally had none of those team kills lined up in quarterfinals, but I do think that's an interesting statistic to bring in as we look over FLICKR's extensive World Championship history.
I don't remember the year unless I remember the memes like the broccoli or the head roll on stage or whatever. But it is crazy to see, and that FLICKR is still so much at the center of this lineup.
And the key thing about it too, not only has they not been eliminated by an LPL team, FLICKR has never gone out in quarterfinals. He has always at least got into semifinals. So it would be a huge divergence if they lose here today.
It would be. T1 dropped a 2-hour Gumayusi documentary a few days ago that I watched, and they were saying about last year that they didn't really think that this was not their time. They thought this was their time, that he even thought, can it be this easy? And that was a huge comeback down to earth for T1, but maybe a good way not to stay complacent. And I see FLICKR is trying to get in the zone.
He's meditating.
He is.
It's crazy because if you look at this particular T1 roster and you give them the expectations of any other org or any other players, then they would be like, we're wildly successful. But this team has only won the one trophy that was Spring LCK right when they were put together. They really need that capstone before the team breaks up. That would be so heartbreaking if they don't get one, because they're so good.
You set it up there. We have heard from some of the members this might be the very last time that we play together in terms of this roster.
Yeah, and the interesting discussion this brings, because of their kind of history of making it to these international finals or making it far at international events and then falling just short, despite the fact that this team, if you look at the breadth of their performances domestically and internationally over that same time span with this core of the roster kind of coming together in 2021 with Kana still in the top lane and then Zeus being added in 2022, you could make a case that this is the most, like, the best team over that time frame. And then the thing that sticks is, you know, sticking the landing.
Yeah, exactly. We have a heartbreak timeline. We did that yesterday also already. It was a tier list then, but for T1 specifically as well, it just shows how hard it is to kind of finish the job, even if you got there against all odds, because have to remind ourselves that often in these cases where they made the runs to finals, we didn't really consider them a favorite either, right, coming out of the region, or the favorite, I should say.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's kind of heartbreaking to see how often it has come back to being T1 and how they just haven't quite been able to get it across the finish line. I think they've been world class for so long, and every time we seem to get them, I mean, you can look at the screen, how many of those games are going the full distance to those 5 games, and it's just at that last little hurdle that they end up falling. And I think that's where, for so many fans, it's, as Kobe was saying, to put the capstone on this organization and on this team to be able to find that success would be a wonderful thing to find here at Worlds.
Yeah, and because of the organization's history, this is a team that once you join it, there's a monumental amount of pressure regardless of what you've accomplished, right? Like, this is South Korea's team. This is by far and away the most popular team. We've been going to a coffee place near the pop-up store in the mall, and it's always jam-packed. Like, today there was a line winding all the way up the stairs. So, I mean, I cannot understate just how massively popular this team is, and also how already, even if we don't include everything we just talked about, how much pressure is involved with playing for T1.
Definitely so. So many storylines going into today, not in the least in the mid lane, because today the GOAT and his former student are finally meeting in a Worlds knockout stage as FLICKR and Scout are facing off in our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz.
The last quarterfinal is about to get started, and what better way to close it out than to have two Worlds winning mid laners meet in our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz. The two have crossed paths a lot over the years, but it's been a long time since they met in an elimination game.
Bane goes out, gets ulted, backline shot with the backline. Will they get him? It's so close. Live with a flash forward and FLICKR. SK Telecom taking down EDG's hopes.
Initially, the student Scout joined T1 as a substitute in 2015 under FLICKR's wing.
SKT will be your first ever two-time world champions!
Before eventually carving his own path in history, lifting the Summoners Cup with EDG in 2021.
Aiming, trying to put the damage down as Scout is going to join the fray. From the side, it's a 5-man!
But one trophy isn't enough to overtake FLICKR's legacy. And Scout can prove here and now that the student has taken another step to becoming the master, sending his former teammate home.
I love the stage setting by Atlas there in that piece about how there's such a big legacy, but it means nothing if you can't make it through on the day, especially versus a Scout who's been playing lights out this tournament so far.
Yeah, one thing I want to stress about Scout is that sometimes you have those all-pro votes that you're kind of like, I don't know about this, you know, and this year, or this summer rather, Knight got the first team All-Pro mid laner, but Scout got MVP, and he's actually now a two-time MVP on the year, which is just showcasing how instrumental his performances are to this LNG's team's success.
And I think a lot of Chinese fans in the LPL finally feel like Scout is getting the success and the recognition that he deserves. When you look back to over the last couple of years, I mean, the guy's a world champion, but we haven't really seen him getting the MVPs or getting those moments to shine. And he's one of the favorites of those LCK imports. He's picked up a ton of Chinese almost immediately coming into the country. I even speaking with a slight Wuhan accent because of how much he talks with Clear Love, which is cool. But yeah, he has been so instrumental to this region, dedicated to EDG, now coming across to LNG. It feels like he's trying to not only cement that legacy that he created on EDG, but now create a new one on this LNG roster.
And he's so versatile for this LNG team because, you know, he plays the Nico in his big initiation, but he also plays the classic mages, could be the hard carry for them later. And it has been magnificent to see him on this world stage continue his very strong performances. In the first 2 days, he was for sure the best single performing player in the whole tournament on his back-to-back Azir games, only dying a single time in both of those. You know, playing to the side lanes, playing for his team, and getting massive solo advantages as well.
And he's been really upfront about how much he's actually learned from FLICKR, not only studying underneath him, but then just continuing to watch him from the LPL, watching T1's games. And I think the crucial thing that I really appreciate about Scout in terms of his evolution as a mid laner is how much he does pay attention to side lanes, like you said, Kobe, how much he looks at the map and sees where he can make plays for his team. And that is why he's just such a huge piece of LNG winning games.
The mid lane has been very important, as it always is, specifically when you get into those late game team fights and what you want to achieve within the game. So I wanted to look at the champion pools of both these mid laners coming into this game. And as we see it there, the only champions FLICKR has played are the ones that are also shared with Scout, where we see a bit more versatility on the other side.
And I think a lot of that to do with Scout Scout is because he was going up against JDG. Even if you look domestically and also at Worlds, when they're playing against JDG, they want to try and take more of these early fights, look for the early skirmishes, and that's where we got to see things like the Sylas, the Ari, the Nikos coming to the forefront in that mid lane so they can play for those early aggressive picks. And I think we'll probably see that here again against T1 because they're so strong in those early stages.
And sometimes those types of graphics can be misleading.
Yes.
This is FLICKR. He has been playing League of Legends
Yes.
forever.
Yeah.
He has played so many champions in the mid lane. And even though, Nico that was up there under Scout was a huge part of him getting T1 here, FLICKR utilizing that and the Azir mainly.
Absolutely. I guess the added context here of when, FLICKR, of course, wasn't there for a part of the regular season. And when he just came back, it did seem that it was only on those few champions that he felt the most comfortable, right? But now we are so much more further on in time and generally at the World Championship. But it is important to discuss how important he just is to this lineup. And you might say in today's head-to-head matchup, he might not be stronger than Scout, but his importance to T1 is so huge.
Yeah, he's such a huge voice for this team. Here we see their game record this past summer, I think, tells the most striking thing, as well as that major lead and major deficit numbers. Like, this team looked really, really lost without his guidance. And obviously, these players have talked about how they felt the pressure kind of mounting on them and stuff like that while FLICKR was injured. But again, he is T1. Honestly, to me,
he truly is.
He is T1.
It came at a pretty good time because people had started to question, does FLICKR still have it, And then this summer was such good evidence that he brings even more than his on-stage performance to these teams that he's on.
And I think that's the showcase of some of the top mid laners we have in the world, right? It's not only the case that you can do incredibly well mechanically or in these team fights, it's being able to almost like puppet master the map, being able to be in control of these side lanes, realizing what you need to do. And I think that just showcases a kind of an omnipresence that FLICKR has that is just absolutely incredible to witness when you see him on the rift.
Yes, but all 5 players have to perform if you want to win a match here at Worlds. And we talked to Gumayusi after they locked their spot in the knockout stage about their confidence moving forward.
오늘 BLG한테 이겨서 매우 기쁘고요. MSI 때 복수를 하고 싶었는데 오늘 2대0으로 할 수 있게 돼서 기쁩니다. 불안함이나 의구심보다는 우리는 충분히 더 잘할 수 있는 팀이다라고 생각을 했고요. 그런 점을 조금씩 보완하면서 충분히 잘할 수 있다고 생각하면서 준비했던 것 같습니다.
Keria finds a tongue lash onto Yagal. No more follow-up here just yet. Nice root coming out from Gumayusi. Now they're going to go in. There's the wombo combo. T1 ain't going to kill anybody just yet. Yagal barely gets away. Oner's ready to swoop in for the Cataclysm. And On gets turned off. Gumayusi flips the switch. And now Shun tries to fire back. Massive double kill over the top.
저희는 롤드컵 시작하기도 전부터 우승권이라고 충분히 생각을 하고 있었고요. 열심히만 하면은 충분히 우승할 수 있다고 생각합니다. 저희 8강 진출에 성공했는데 8강 이기고 4강 이기고 결승도 진출해서 꼭 우승할 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 화이팅!
T1 fighting indeed. Guma feels that they can do it, and that's what you have to believe. And we've talked a lot about T1 because of being in Busan, because of being in South Korea, and because of the job they have at hand. But LNG are now no slouches. They are a very, very impressive team, and they were a bit underrated when you look at the latter season, I think, in the LPL, but they shut up a lot of people.
I think that kind of is the story of LNG as a whole, though. Even when you look back at this time last year, they finished in 7th and ran almost the entire way through that lower bracket, nearly making it to Worlds, finishing 3rd in the regional qualifiers. And now we get to see a very similar story where a lot of people were looking at the likes of EDG coming in to be that team that went to Worlds. And then it was only after we got to see them pop off in playoffs, push JDG every single time these two teams have faced off, that people started to say LNG is actually the 2nd seed from the LPL. And across the board, this roster is looking to nearly create a new legacy away from what has been their traditional homes. We already talked about Scout, GALA with RNG, but also in that top side for Zika.
Yep.
Zika is an incredible top laner that's been added. His rookie year was last year, but he's actually become known as the bidding king over in the LPL because he had the highest transfer fees of any player in the LPL this year to come across to LNG. They really wanted this top laner. Didn't quite work out in spring, but over the course of summer, he has looked spectacular and playing multiple different styles here.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with LNG is that you would think of them as a slower team compared to other LPL teams. That's not to say that they're a slow team. The LPL is a very fast-paced region, and as we look at how they perform versus other, in comparison to the averages from other LPL teams, I think the big thing for me is that first blood time. They're a lot less bloody early, in my opinion, but I do think what was instrumental in them going up against JDG and actually pushing them to those 5 games was not only like massive performances from individuals, but also the fact that they did try to scrap with them a lot earlier than what you would expect from what you saw from LNG in other series.
And I think it's the 8-minute timer that's the big one. I mean, 8:40 on the first blood. It's that Rift Out for me is always the standout. That seems to be where they want to go for these fights and find those first bloods.
And I actually dug a little bit deeper into the average game times to separate the stats between wins and losses to see where that feeling is coming from people, because the average game time actually isn't, bad for LNG. But if you compare it to T1 actually had longer average game times, but that's only because their game times in losses were extended because they fight so much to try and extend those losses when they're behind. LNG lost very quickly, but won very slowly. T1 had much quicker times when they're actually winning the game, instantly being able to close it out and push for that. So that's what gives this feeling to LNG watchers and LNG fans, is when they're winning the game, they win in that methodical way, pushing for those objectives. And it's not as explosive, it's not as shiny, but they get the job done.
They get the job done, and when it comes to the team fights, they will be on point as well. And I believe you wanted to take a look at a T1 team fight, Toby.
Right. I think something that's going to be very, very fun for this matchup is going to be the draft phase, because we've seen some slight changes in meta and some emergence of some individual champions. Now, of course, everybody is well aware of the Senna Tahm Kench, and I'm not going to use the T1 example of the Senna Tahm Kench the first game versus BLG, because that's not fair. They got a huge lead, level 1. I'm going to use a harder example. This is a game where T1 are 2,000 gold behind, a dragon behind to BLG, and 4 kills behind. So you can't say I'm cherry picking something where they're super far ahead with this Tahm Kench, but Tahm Kench absolutely counters single target dive. The Syndra, the Vi that have been very important, and even to some extent the Alistar here. So we're going to take a look at how expertly they use Keria's Tahm Kench, even without the Senna, to be able to protect Gumayusi here. The first thing they do is, in these team fights they're forcing around Dragon while they're behind, is they create this triangle to protect the back line. So Keria has distance to be able to protect both of the carries, either FLICKR or Guma. And you notice Guma's position here is on the front line. He can only do that because they have a Tahm Kench, and it allows him to put this auto attack threat onto the enemy jungler that is going to be coming for this dragon to be able to get that first kill and get excited. So that's the game plan from T1 side, and you see it play out here. Boom, boom, boom. They take him down, and they're going to get a bunch of damage onto the enemy jungler. But what BLG are thinking from their play side is that they're going to have on engage onto Gumayusi here and headbutt him into Yagao so they can use this Syndra ultimate, burst down the Jinx, right? Seems like a great game plan.
Yeah.
Too bad Tahm Kench is here. Keria is going to deny the whole plan, and it would have worked out because both DPS for BLG are right here to hit Guma. But the Scatter of the Weak is completely nullified there. He eats him up, and Guma pops right back out, excited, and they chase down these kills, even from a 2,000 gold and dragon deficit. And Gumayusi goes on in this game to end 11-0-3 with that protection from Keria. So really want to see the diversity that we can see in draft explored here in this series.
Yeah, and I do want to highlight Keria's Tahm Kench specifically, because it's not just for protection, like in that fight. He plays this so aggressively and so forward. It's one of his signature picks. It's his 3rd most played, 71.8% win rate. And I think with the meta that we've seen LPL teams bring, T1 are very comfortable in that.
They're comfortable in that style, but it will left to be seen if they will be able to play it today. Let's check in with our fans and who they think is going to win in our MasterCard fan predictions. Each day you can head over to MasterCard GG on X to participate. Oh my God!
What?
Wait, what?
Is that correct?
Is that a mistake?
T1 is the most dominant team.
Yeah.
I feel like it's definitely a mistake.
Oh, it is a mistake. And we're not saying this in terms of kind of how we think this match will go, but in terms of kind of the fan backings that we've seen on X so far, right? Wow, we were just
baited.
We were baited. actual powers that be. In any case, though, as we get very close, it is fixed now. There we go. But so much between it, just kind of before we get to that first pick and ban. T1, the last hope of the LCK. Their hopes and dreams of all the fans in the LCK. They rely on the flagship organization of T1 with such a tough road ahead of them of LPL super teams. They will need to perform to their absolute peak. Will LNG silence Busan as all the LPL teams have done so far? Will LNG do it once and for all today, or will the hometown favorite make the crowd erupt? Let's kick off this quarterfinal.
스카웃. 2015년 SKT의 연습생이었던 그는 멀리서 그의 우상인 페이커의 롤드컵 우승을 지켜보았습니다. 2016년 페이커의 서브가 된 그는 아쉽게도 그의 그림자에서 벗어날 수 없었죠. LPL에서 새로운 기회를 얻은 스카웃. 끊임없는 노력 후 2021년 롤드컵을 들어올립니다. 2023년 그는 고향인 한국에서 LNG와 함께 운명적으로 페이커와 대결하게 됩니다. 그들의 첫 다전제 경기죠.
상혁이 형은 선수로서 좋은 마인드셋을 가지고 오랜 기간 동안 좋은 성적을 낸 게 정말 존경받을 만한 선수인 것 같고, 선수로서의 책임감 같은 게 많이 느껴져서 그런 부분을 좀 따라하려고 했던 것 같아요.
2021 World Champion, the MVP in the LPL regular season, an absolute force.
스카웃 선수는 예전부터 게임에만 집중하고 굉장히 조용한 선수였는데 그 덕분에 지금은 최고의 선수가 되었고 다시 맞붙게 되었습니다. 스카웃 선수랑 굉장히 오랜만에 다시 만나게 됐는데 얼마나 성장했을지 기대가 되고 빨리 맞붙고 싶습니다.
这也是我因为我之前的成绩都是8强嘛，所以在8强的时候再度击败去年击败我的战队，我觉得这个对我来说非常有意义。你们22年釜山的噩梦将在这里重现。我们会让这里再度鸦雀无声。
서로의 이기고 지고 하는 과정에서
FLICKR did get injured. They are on a 4-loss streak.
서로의 속마음을 털어놓는 시간들도 있었고 100%의 T1도 보실 수 있을 거라고 생각합니다.
상혁이 형, 지금 저는 많이 성장했으니까 지금의 저를 느껴보세요.
예찬아, 다시 만나서 반갑다. 최고가 되려면 저를 넘어서야 할 겁니다.
All up to T1. They are the last team remaining outside of the LPL from any region.
This is the team that T1 fans want at the World Championship. GALA will not have it! LNG make their way into the quarterfinals!
8강의 마지막 날, 이제 시작합니다.
상혁이 형, 미안하지만 제가 올라가겠습니다.
예찬아, 행운을 빈다. 멋지게 싸우자.
마지막 대결이 펼쳐질 이곳 부산에 오신 여러분 환영합니다. 오늘 경기에 나설 두 팀을 맞이할 시간입니다. 먼저 여러분이 너무나도 잘 알고 있는 미드 정글 듀오의 위력, 그리고 오늘도 갈라쇼는 계속된다. LNG!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Busan for our final clash in the quarterfinals. Please join me in welcoming our two seeds to the stage with the jungle mid duo known to everyone here in Busan and the unstoppable GALA in the bot lane. It is LNG.
이어서 챔피언이라는 타이틀이 너무나도 잘 어울리는 팀이죠. LCK의 마지막 희망, 네 번째 소환사컵을 노린다.
A team synonymous with championships, looking to raise the Summoners Cup for the fourth time, none other than T1.
남은 자리는 단 하나뿐. 마지막으로 4강에 오를 팀은 어디가 될지 LNG와 T1의 대결 지금부터 시작하겠습니다.
Just one spot in the semifinals remains. Caster Jun said it best. Let the battle begin. And here we are on the caster desk, and I gotta say, it's hard to follow up Caster Jun because he's such a legend that he just goes completely off script. Then I stick to the script because I don't want to mistranslate. And this man is clearly saying the most hype stuff imaginable. Regardless of what language you speak, you can tell what he's saying is probably dope. It's just a hard act to follow. That's all I'm saying.
Has like 5 words. The Caster Jun talks for
2 minutes. Yeah.
Don't worry. Atlas said it best yesterday. He's given up on trying to follow up Caster Jun. What an intro. And I got to say, of all the quarterfinals, I think this is on paper the one that is going to feel the closest. We've had some great series, but I think this one might top it all.
This one is going to be so good. I am so ridiculously excited, and welcome to you as well. This is your intro,
Good to be here. Yeah, Draco's Chronicler and Azale for the cast. Thrilled to be here, gentlemen, and thrilled to be here for this game. Can't wait to see EU play.
You just have to wait a couple months.
Wait a couple months.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we are. Bans coming in hot and fast. A lot of questions about what both teams are going to prioritize here. No surprise to see Renata taken away. Caitlyn a bit interesting, but has been a priority pick alongside the Nico and the Xayah.
Yeah, Caitlyn specifically a pick that Gumayusi loves, and I wouldn't be surprised if Keria added more high-pressure supports to his arsenal, something that T1 used really well this year in spring. And with Caitlyn especially, it can become really hard. And I think the meta has shifted more and more towards prio on bot side.
Exactly. It's been so much about fifth pick, counter pick, 4 supports, from these LPL teams that we've seen win in 3 back-to-back days. But you talk about Keria, you talk about his flexibility, even back to when we were having, all kinds of crazy supports in the bot lane, the ADCs, everything. Keria can play it all. So I really am so interested to find out what the preparation is here for T1. They're on red side. Will they go 5th pick, counter pick here for Keria and really try to run this first game through bot lane? That's my biggest question.
And right from the get-go, I like this from LNG. Take away this J4 from Oner. Oner has been the biggest point of contention for T1. One of the members that wasn't really able to perform, but this far on Worlds has been able to have a really big impact. And LNG also gets GALA's Kai'Sa and Scout's Azir.
These are the 2 champions that I feel like you associate most with these iconic players, and that is really, really scary. People are generally enjoying the Azir matchup into Orianna. It is kind of a similar thought process to when you're playing against Victor, where you can try to go in on cooldown, force out those flashes, get repeat ganks, get the kills. But I will say at Worlds, most of our Orianna players have been able to play very well around that, and we haven't really seen them fall prey to that Azir play. So interested to see if Scout can really kind of ramp things up and change that script.
And I'm also curious to see what T1 do with this blind pick Aatrox. What are they going to take away now to try to make sure that this is a setup matchup for success for Zeus? Because when I look at the first 3 picks on the side of LNG, I feel like they got everything they could possibly want here between the Azir as well as the Kai'Sa. What do they actually want to take away now on the side of T1 to make sure they're getting something out of this Aatrox pick?
I mean, I think you could just ban Renekton if you're going to ban another top laner, but they might just go more towards supports. The Jax is already banned out. I do think you can ban out Renekton. It's obviously a great option. Cassante, you think you're generally happy about playing into that matchup. As the Aatrox, but it is just going to be a focus on supports here, and maybe going to be a pick for support on 4 even, for T1 to really kind of thin the pool.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if LNG opt into the Senna ban here. We've seen the Senna be really successful into Kai'Sa specifically. And there is also still the flex potential. Like, I'm assuming this Rell will go towards Oner, but there is still the opportunity for T1 to hold that until the end.
I mean, clearly they're just trying to limit the engage options to pair with the Kai'Sa, right? You know, that is the emphasis here. The Rell has already been taken away. Again, assuming it is going to go jungle, it is a flex, but you banned away the Alistar, you've banned away that Nautilus. There are other options still available, but their Khan getting banned out. So clearly, LNG was worried about what I was thinking might happen, which is that support pick on 4. So they self-ban out that Rakan, but it does mean now they go over towards the Senna. It's likely going to be Senna TK, but there are other options, and T1 is one of the only teams in the world that has shown us that at a high level.
Specifically, Keria has been, I think, the most impressive when he can find these counter picks on support, and with Senna, it really opens up the pool of available picks. Oh, the crank is here!
This is like almost a pre-counter to that Tahm Kench. You're kind of expecting the Tahm Kench to come in. People do like this matchup. You can go aggressive with that Blitzcrank, but this is a feast or famine style pick here for Hong, and he's going to have to perform well, because if you fall behind on Blitz, you become useless fast.
And this Gwen actually is the counter pick that T1 opted into in Game 5 of the finals last year into the Aatrox. We'll see if Zika has a better time. Didn't work back then. What is going to be the R5 counter pick here?
I mean, this is, I'm expecting it to still be the TK, but, you know, is he going to go another option? Because I do think there's a lot of other good pairings. I've seen things like Cho'Gath, and Nilah is something that I've heard about, and Nilah's going to get locked in. It is the Nilah Senna lane. This is something that a lot of people have been kind of whispering about it, talking about it in solo queue, popping up in scrims as well. The ability to all in here is really, really high. You can play it aggressive, and I think it's going to be a true support Senna. It's not going to be the fasting Senna here. It is just going to be a full-on Senna support. This is really exciting to see this brought out in such an important match.
Absolutely. A crazy curveball to throw in Game 1. If you manage to come out on top in this game with the Nilah pick, suddenly this is a must-pick ban, highly contested champion, can change the entire structure of draft moving forward. But can they execute on it? As highlighted, Nilah, very feast or famine, synergizes with Senna fantastically, yes, but not the traditional safe, hyper-scaling AD carry. Very vulnerable as we get later into the game.
Yeah, and the Nilah specifically is something that T1 themselves suffered defeat from. It was one of the matches midway through summer when they lost against Noxious. And it actually was a really big point, because that was the point where T1 really started to crack, and we saw them falter more and more, and after that we did see the pick pop up a lot more, so even in summer it was already played someone in LCK.
I mean, it's so interesting because, you know, Senna traditionally you want to pair with melee champions that are farming, and you queue through them for the heal plus the poke at the same time. Nilah basically works in the same way. Nilah is essentially just a melee AD carry, right? Like, you are playing that short range style. You're going to be between the enemy and your Senna, so the Senna can get that double value, can look for the pokes. You can look for all-ins as well, trying to go aggressive, trying to find those plays. And I'm so interested to see what kind of a build we're going to get from Guma, because there's so many options. Some people even go things like that are more kind of tanky options, and they just act as like a pseudo-engage, that primary engage. You know, what kind of a build is he going to go? That it really remains to be seen.
Something we're going to have to find out as we get onto the Rift for Game 1 here. Massive quarterfinal for all of the LCK, the last hope, T1 on the red side versus LNG. Of course, you can connect your League of Legends account with Prime Gaming to grab the exclusive Braum W emote. Get those rewards. Get in there.
And we've already seen Hong actually place an early ward to try and take control of the brush. Obviously, into any Nilah lane, you're going to try and make sure that you can actually threaten with the Blitzcrank, because if you just let Guma and Keria take control of the lane level 1, it can become really hard to play out, as once you get an experience lead, actually retaking control can be tough.
I mean, Blitz just has to threaten all-ins in basically every Blitz lane ever, right? You offer nothing other than that. So, especially against a ranged support like the Senna, Keria doesn't have to farm. You're just going to be purely focused on harassing this Blitz, poking down this Blitz. And if Hong is not able to put on that pressure, if he's not able to step up and really make them worried about those hooks, then it's going to be tough, and they're going to use this pressure here. Level 1, really strong with both the bot laners there from T1 there to assist. Oner moves in. He's going to be able to steal away the Raptors and see if he can find anyone on the red. Doesn't see it, so he's just going to go back up towards his blue buff, looks like.
Seeing what angle they can find to maybe generate an early advantage here, get something done. Finally, matchup, I think, is we're just going to keep coming back to it because it's so interesting, because it's such a unique duo of champions. But it's going to be frustrating for side of LNG, or it could be effortless. If they find a single all-in, if you shut this bot lane down early, it can fall apart. But if you play a slow lane against a champion who heals, Senna, a champion who boosts healing, Nilah, you're not going to get anything done. And right now you can see how GALA and Hung already on the back foot here. Not able to walk up. Early level 2 comes through courtesy of the experience sharing from Guma as he grabs those creeps and just makes the lane that much more difficult.
And both these champions, you know, we talked about, Scout's going to have to flash.
Flash to the safety, clockwork windup. FLICKR not going to overextend. Not going to step too far forward to push that advantage, but excellent start for him in the mid lane.
Yeah, nicely played. Scout just went to the side to try to get a ward down, and FLICKR felt safe, you know, knows that he has like his jungler relatively close to him, you know, knew that he was able to play towards that side, just chases him down, forces the flash.
At the same time, T1 are aware that Tarzan is somewhere on the top half of the map, right? They have the ward on the red, know that it hasn't been taken, so I think FLICKR not moving too far forward there and committing his flash, definitely something that is more risk-averse and ends up working out well, though we are seeing Tarzan take that Raptor camp, maybe might be looking for a gank afterwards. FLICKR is pretty far up.
Well, and look where FLICKR is positioning, though. You can see him playing towards the bottom side of this lane. He's going to play towards the side that his jungler is. You know, he's always going to be hugging more towards that side. He has the ward up on top side right there at the top of your screen, so he's going to be able to have time to react if this does come. You can see the wave was bounced, and it's pushing slowly towards him. So FLICKR will take the base. He'll just TP back in. It's also worth noting that he is playing Comet. We see so many different options here for the Orianna as well as the Azir. Some people playing Halo Blades. This is the Conqueror style, so it is likely to be Nashers. It's likely to be Leandries as well for Scout, and we'll see if that is going to be the option. Obviously, can go Crown as well. There's just so many different styles that people can go towards. No flash, though.
Incredibly flexible champion. Scout now stepping backwards. Should be okay here unless Oner's willing to burn a summoner spell, but Tarzan there to cover. Means the play will fizzle out, but top side, bot side completely isolated. They're getting to do what he wants on top side of the map, and it is paying off thus far. 31-18 the CS. Will even up a bit as this wave comes in, but you can see already that the Gwen has a pretty sizable advantage versus the Aatrox early on.
Yeah, and I think part of that is Zeus also had to kind of respect the wave, couldn't take early trades because he knew that Tarzan was towards the top half of the map, so if he trades too aggressively early, and Gwen, the first few levels are actually quite strong, and you set yourself up for a dive, it opens up a really easy opportunity for LNG to get ahead on the top side.
And so much of that matchup is being able to kind of just stay right on the edge of that Q range. So when Zeus goes for the Q that's about to hit you, you can pop your immune, stay outside where he's still on the outside of that ring, and you're going to be able to immune that. It makes it very, very difficult for Aatrox to kind of play that style that you want to in these matchups where you're constantly just poking away with those Qs. Because Gwen has the ability, both with that immunity and also with the skip and slash, to dodge to the side, to trade back really effectively, and to take all in. So it is a very tough matchup that scales incredibly well, and I'm so interested to see how Zika is going to perform because this guy has just improved by leaps and bounds over this last year. In summer especially, I thought he was incredible in the LPL, and there is that style that I'm talking about. Right on the edge, the Q gets immune, and he's going to be able to get a good trade back as a result.
Excellent Q2, though, to ensure the pullback does come in. That said, Zeus still not coming out on top in these trades. Will get easier once he has some natural sustain to come through from the Gore Drinker, but right now, Gwen running the top side of the map. Oner there just to cover, just to pick up the Krugs.
Yeah, big finger, Zeus hasn't actually backed yet. His wave state is kind of awkward, though. I wouldn't be surprised if Oner goes for a lane gank here, but did get spotted. So Zika shouldn't be in any trouble, but at the very least, it should allow Zeus to push out and get a back in. And then use the teleport to get back to lane. And again, I'm pretty sure Oner did get spotted, so shouldn't really be any risk for the Gwen here.
Does always get a little bit dicey, though, you know, when Gwen hits 6 there, because he can try to hold this wave potentially. Oner has base. Obviously, Zika doesn't know this, so he's still going to play down towards River, where we know that Tarzan is available for a potential counter gank if he had stayed around. And seeing that the wave got pulled with a cannon, Zeus couldn't actually base, and now Oner is not there, and the jungler's coming up, and Zika's 6, so they're going to look for an all-in.
Zeus has the ulti, a bit extra movement speed. Will get away from the flank and drag. Quick flash out to safety. Instantly just going to ult for the extra movement speed. Now the damage coming through for the Gwen. Tarzan looking to follow up the flash in. Zeus still living for now, but first blood on the top side for LNG. Zika cuts him down.
Really well played there by LNG. Oner didn't want to show, so he didn't want to fully kind of just show on the waves to be able to help him crash. As a result, he hides his positioning, but it means that Zeus had to stay around because with that cannon, it was going to be a freeze. Oner will start up the dragon on the bot side here, though, so we'll see if LNG has anything to say about it.
Really well done there by LNG. It's using the fact that Zeus really wants to get that wave in. The adaptation from Tarzan to, instead of going back, up towards that top side gank. T1 will be able to pick up the Dragon, and I do think that the fact that Zeus still had his teleport available means that at least right now he will be able to pick up most of the CS and the wave, but it does mean Zika already has about like, 40% of a level up and has a kill plus a 20 CS lead. So this Gwen is going to be really tough to deal with as we get into the mid to late stages of the game.
I mean, it's first blood as well, so it's nearly an 800 gold lead up there in the top lane, which is going to be really, really rough, but Zeus trading well there. The wave still should crash. It's too much to hold, and you're too low HP. So the wave will crash. Zika's going to go see if he can find some honey fruit, likely, in the river. And if he can get it, which he does, I can see his health going up. So he's going to pick that up, but still Lex to base.
And the investment top side just certainly paying off thus far for LNG and their counter pick with the Gwen. The bottom side, however, Guma doing pretty well to at least have a small lead over GALA. The biggest difference you're going to notice is experience, again, because of the champions selected. Might free up Keria to lay down a little bit more global pressure with the ultimate. Something we're going to have to see if T1 are able to use.
And it's a good bit of push here for Keria and Guma. And I want to see, if T1 are going to be opting into, that soul optimization, trying to follow around your jungler, trying to pick up all these additional souls, because really kind of ramping that up is such a big deal, especially if you are playing purely support Senna, where you're not going to be farming, you're not going to be kind of getting that additional gold through that mid game, because you do have a true AD carry. It's not like you're paired with Tom Kench where you can start picking up more and more of that farm. So I want to see how he optimizes. He's at 27 souls already, but that is going to be a huge portion of your damage in this kind of a game.
Certainly is. Every 20 souls, 15 AD, 20 range, 10% crit chance. So it's going to feel good every time you hit one of those breakpoints as Keria. T1, 3 members in the area, ready to set up. Scout on the flank, however, going to look for the shove. Is going to manage to catch only Zeus in the meantime. Baker still standing strong. Shockwave getting good damage down. T1 quick to force the fight. Zika not powerful enough to force that one through. T1 taking one and might just turn right back to the Herald.
And T1 there, a lot of confidence. Crucially there, I think they're relying on the ultimate from Keria. In these early skirmishes, the heal as well as the fact that you can take, or rather focus on a target with all the CC that is available for T1 with Shockwave, the entirety of Rell's kit and Aatrox. And LNG going a little bit too ham on the early skirmish.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Just look at the itemization for Scout right now. Like, he's got a crystal, he's got some mana and a dagger. That's it, right? Like, he doesn't really have much power behind this, so he does find a decent ultimate, but the follow-up's not going to be there. Tarzan not really able to get much damage done. Zika, I think, was just on tabbies at the time of that fight, so definitely not in a great position to force it, and they do get punished pretty heavily here.
Big here as well is that Zeus has a Hex Drinker, so that actually is really good in this early 3v3. Can tank a lot of damage. You see as well, Tarzan just gets 100 to 0 between the CC from Oner as well as FLICKR Shockwave, and then you're already a member down. This Aatrox is ready to go after you, and I think LNG should be happy that they're able to get the rest of the people out.
Yeah, I mean, the Senna helps, sure, but it's not like they were even close to killing anybody. I think that was an ill-advised fight for LNG to take. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised because they are one of those teams that, to me, is extremely measured. They're usually really good at evaluating how strong they are in a game. And if they don't feel that they're in a perfect position, you often just see them play side lanes, they trade for plates, they trade for jungle camps, they trade for objectives. And they're one of those LPL teams that is least likely to fight you if they don't feel that they're in an advantageous position. So it is a little bit surprising to see them opting into it, and T1 does punish. And you can see as a result, the gold lead opening up. FLICKR up over 20 CS, gets a kill there, and has taken 2 plates. So the Orianna is more than 1,000 gold ahead, and the Herald's now going to get dropped.
Yeah, Herald going to come crashing down here, only going to further extend FLICKR's lead. As you can see on the bottom of your screen there, Scout doing what he can to just push everything back, but now they might just go in for the counter punch. Scout pulled away, forced to flash out to safety. The Herald still connects. Now FLICKR going to be in trouble, but again, there's no follow-up damage here. Orianna just sitting pretty. Thank you very much, Tarzan. That was terrible. And now what the hell? T1! They're living rent-free in the heads of LNG. They have a timeshare there, and they're just now cashing in.
And usually LNG is the team that is so good about not taking fights that they shouldn't take. And then we'll talk about a topside 1v1 later on, but specifically that mid play. Why did Tarzan go in?
Well, why did Scout go in? Why did either of them go in? Scout goes in, ultim away, then has to flash out. There's no damage left. Then afterwards, Tarzan goes in. You got no damage. There's no way you're 100 to 0ing this Orianna, so it wasn't even close. And that is back-to-back fights where LNG really unorganized and really overestimating their point in the games. Let's watch this one more time. Zika starts to take the trade here, has the ulti available, but Zeus just sidestepping on the Rs. and then is able to turn it around here in the final moments. So both these queues, actually both players playing it really well, but just no heal cut through that ultimate meant couldn't actually do enough damage.
And I think because of the earlier play, there was actually a CS advantage or an experience advantage for Zeus. As yeah, again, I don't know. There is no
so
damage follow-up.
Unorganized.
And especially with Shockwave still available, you're just never getting out of there. As Tarzan feels like the communication there between Scout and Tarzan just not on the level it needs to be.
No, absolutely not. LNG are looking nervous in game 1 here. And if you can't tell, the crowd seems to be favoring T1 here in Korea. The crowd erupting with every single play. And LNG looking really uncomfortable.
I mean, GALA wanted to turn it into a library. That has not been the case yet. T1 off to a roaring start. 3K gold advantage. Fantastic at this stage of the game. And again, bot lane hasn't even gotten involved yet. They have done very little. They are a part of the gold lead courtesy of Senna and all that additional soul gold, but they've just kept GALA and Hong under their turret the entire game thus far.
But the big thing is, with a lot of the action happening towards the top side of the map, it has allowed Guma and Keria to just play fully for bullying in the lane. Yep. Because there is no support from Tarzan, and Scout and Zika obviously haven't had an opportunity yet either to get towards the bot side of the map, this counter pick of the Nilah actually ends up working out really well. I think it's like an... what is it, a free 400 gold lead here, just from the plates on Guma over GALA.
And Keria, the gold is relevant on a Senna here, and he's a good 600-700 gold ahead because he's actually farming gold as well, you know, really effectively off those plates. The crown now done for FLICKR, so he's going to be staying safe. And Hong on this Blitzcrank from behind, that is going to be tough. You know, your soul lanes have both fallen behind. Your bot lane is perma pushed in. You haven't been able to even, I haven't even seen him attempt to hook 13 minutes into the game so far.
And I mean, Blitzcrank from behind, when you're going to be playing against Umbral Glaive, you never are going to know if you're in that safe pocket of vision where you can lurk and set up that perfect hook. The potential is always there, but the windows of opportunity get smaller and smaller when you're at this kind of deficit, when you're playing against so much vision denial, especially against a champion like Senna. And normally, Guma, we often see Collector come out as a first item, aggressive, yes, much more solo queue focused, but it seems like he might be going Serrated Dirk into Navori, just looking to capitalize on that additional damage, the cooldown reduction that comes through, the endless W procs that show up.
I mean, you can just see the turret plates 9-1 for T1. That shows you how that early game is going. They have the kills to back it up as well. Zeus now with that Dustblade complete. He did this all through the LCK playoffs. He loves to play this in Lethality style. Even when he's playing into tanks, he was still doing this, and he was able to really make it work, Chronicler, by finding the backline in these fights.
Well, there's a couple of interesting itemization choices on T1. You already commented on the Aatrox as well as the Nilah, but it looks like FLICKR's actually going for Crown into Banshees.
Yeah.
So, like, the man is really going for defensive playstyles in the featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz. Thus far, FLICKR, I normally am not a fan of going for these type of full supportive builds, but if you're 1,500 gold up, might get away with it.
And honestly, I think his read is probably that he's the only one that is vulnerable in these engages. If he feels that, hey, the Nilah can stay safe, you know, with the W and the R, amping healing, you know, that can't afford to actually all in on Keria, then hey, maybe it's going to work out.
Forward. Flash out to stage from Keria is clean. TP now coming in just to cover the play in the mid lane just in case. Crown buff will fade away, but T1 leveraging that TP just to ensure that they come out on top in the skirmish will not work out for Hung.
Also, honestly, it's double AP solo laners, plus it's a Blitzcrank, right? So having that Banshee's Veil actually has incredibly high value, not only against the hard all-ins, but against, you know, even just having that MR is pretty high value. So I agree, people, you know, very, very critical of these really defensive builds, but maybe in this case it works out because you've got a lot of damage on this T1 team.
Zeus just walking up fearlessly, and this sucks for LNG. This was the guy you set up to pull ahead. The map was split to isolate top lane, but that 1v1 costing so much now as we get later into the game.
And Zeus, you know, for all his struggles that he has found in finals, and specifically against Doran, was, I think, the member that even during the tough times for T1 this summer, looked the most composed.
Yeah.
It's really easy to forget that this is a player that has only been the starter for 2 years, right? Like, he's obviously been a mainstay for T1, but hasn't been around for that long.
The whole T1 team, you know, well, besides FLICKR, you know, is incredibly, incredibly young, even for pro standards, but it just feels like they're such veterans because they make every deep run. You know, every time they show up to these international events, they keep getting far. And yes, they have not won that big international event yet, but they have gotten close time and time again.
And really big now is that LNG is able to create some vision denial against T1, right? You want to have at least an opportunity to maybe try and hook someone in, get a lead, because with the goal deficit the way it is, I feel like LNG is going to be forced to contest for this Drake. Like, Soul Point Infernal Soul is not going to be very fun and interactive to play into. You can see as well that they're already making their way over. And we'll have to see if LNG can find a way, because if they can win a fight here, it might be an avenue back into the game.
It's also Gale Force for Guma, so he's not going Navori. I've seen a lot more Navori in solo queue as well. But going for that Gale Force does give you the additional playmaking. Pro's obviously a really big fan of this item. Allows you to close the gap. You can see that he is also playing Ghost, so between the flash, the dashes with the E, you can try to get in on that back line, snap people in with the ulti. You have Keria with the ulti over the top to support. And T1 is just going to try to pile in massive amounts of AoE damage. Started off by Guma. You have Oner going in. You have the Shockwave going in. You have AoE damage coming out from Zeus. And if they can pull off that engage, it's going to be incredibly difficult for LNG, I think, to turn it around.
And I think one thing that LNG needs to consider is we see this all in on the top side. Zeus getting the Q3 in, but not quite as much sustained as initially expected. Hex Drinker pocked. Won't result in much more. Both sides simply backing away. A trade of ultimates. But you can see here, a lot of T1's composition leveraging the power of healing. Might need to see some reduction from the side of LNG, but TP coming top side.
They're all coming. There's 4 at top right now.
Full focus on getting this objective bounty. Zeus, flag and drag. We'll just get the flash in the end. Tower picked up on the bottom side as well.
That's going to be double objective bounty in about 30 seconds there for LNG. They got the tier 1 bot. They're taking the tier 1 top. Yes, they're going to be losing that dragon, but they've made the call here. And this is more the LNG that I know that is not going to fight these fights where they think they're disadvantaged, right? And that's why it was so surprising to see them take some of it earlier on. But they're just going to play the map. They're going to try to get as much gold in the pockets of their carries as possible and attempt to be ready for this soul fight, which is very likely to be game deciding here in 5 minutes.
At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised knowing T1 if they don't even opt into a soul fight in 5 minutes, but just head straight towards the Baron. Something that this team has been known for a really long time. And I think in summer they cooled it down a little bit. Didn't really work out quite as well as it has in the past. We'll see if LNG find a way, because I do agree. I think that fighting there is always going to lose you the game.
Yeah.
LNG identified the best opportunity to still get something out of the play.
And it's going to be Crown into Nashers here for Scout. So again, respecting the upfront damage, respecting that potential engage. And Zeus just all aboard the lethality train here. He's going more and more towards it. I think we're going to see Collector second for Guma. And, you know, just looking towards this kind of heavy burst style build does make armor very, very valuable when you have 3 lethality users over on the T1 side, but you know, we're not seeing anything really itemized in towards just yet.
And it's tricky because Nilah is an incredibly obnoxious champion. Every bit of crit she buys gives her percentage armor pen as well as healing when she does damage to champions. So oftentimes you'll wonder, why is Nilah hitting so hard? It's because to make a melee carry work, they had to give her ridiculous frickin' scaling. And you will feel it at 2 items, most certainly. You will feel it even more at 3 items. If this champion is not blown up in a fight, she will take over in extended engages.
There is also the fact that we've seen the most, I think one of the most successful combos in this tournament has been Rakan or Rell combined with Jarvan, right? Like that combo, or Rell and Rakan together. And without the Nilah, T1 wouldn't really have anything to, outside of a Shockwave, to really follow up in the same way. And particularly with Guild Force, I think it'll be really easy for Guma to follow up if a good engage is found.
Absolutely, and I even think there's opportunities to just start it off yourself if you do find that angle, right? That's what makes this champion so unique, is that you can be the primary engage, and it's not really in a way that any other AD carry can. Sure, there's champions like Ashe, but it's obviously very different shooting an arrow out versus shooting yourself out.
Sure, and she's also one of the only AD carries in the game that can go, oh, Gwen wants to jump on top of me, that's fine. You know, this is a champion who can block so many of those empowered autos. Yes, she can't block the snip, but can take a lot of these diving champions on head-to-head if they don't have backup from a player like GALA or Scout. Hook going just a little bit wide there, but you can see LNG fighting tooth and nail to get a little bit of vision down here, just to make sure that T1 cannot attempt to sneak the Baron. T1 no mid-prio yet, but with Guma coming out of the base, with Collector, they will start to fight back for some of this vision control.
This is also where you see the Umbral Glaive get a ton of value, right? And the fact that Keria is able to consistently take away some of the vision of LNG. Although I gotta say, with this ward surviving, I think they still have a pretty good idea of T1 not actually starting the Baron yet, combined with the fact that they have, I think, a ward right in front of the pit.
Yep, they do.
Which is good scouting on LNG's part, knowing T1 and their knack for starting Barons on a moment's notice.
Scout here on the side. He's just going to lay down a little bit of poke here, get the Conqueror stacked up against Oner. Blitz. I'm just going to continue to fish for these picks. But Banshee's Veil plus Crown you know, you talked about it earlier as a build. It's obviously a very conservative build, but at the same time, no one is ever killing FLICKR. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough, especially from the position that T1 are in. And there's so many threats on this team that it's going to be really difficult to get into the backline towards him. But at the same time, you know, you have to respect the fact that Scout is on his ultimate comfort pick. GALA on his ultimate comfort pick is on 2 items. Scout likely to have his Nashers done relatively soon. And LNG, I think, are going to hope to get their 2 items done before this next Dragon, and I think that is where they're going to try to just draw the line in the sand and try to turn this game around. If you can win a big fight there, if you can take that Dragon away from T1, maybe knock some of these towers off the map, all of a sudden, the game becomes within reach.
And do note as well, talking about 2-item power spikes, Zeus actually finishing the Edge of Night, another Blitzcrank counter item, right? Yep. Making it hard for him to get hooked in. Oner with the Knight's Vow, which I think he put on Guma just now.
Yeah, there's really not good poke either on LNG's side to actually knock off Banshee's Aura tonight.
Not a lot of ways. And in about 30 seconds, this is going to be a must-win fight for LNG. Infernal Soul also going to take away a lot of the potential problems with lethality. Because if you add all the extra damage on top of that, it's not going to be nearly as much of a problem. Or T1 might pivot towards the Nash.
We'll see what T1 want to do, but this is an opportunity. 2 items across the board, just about for the side of LNG. Maybe a chance to fight their way back into this game. Some unforced errors earlier on, costing them dearly as we've gotten later into this game. But they can reset the script right here if they can find the right angle on this fight.
You can see both teams trying to fight for this mid lane wave, but all the vision for T1 is focused towards that Baron side, and T1 do have mid prio. The Dragon spawning just now, so will LNG just try to rush it? And the answer is going to be yes. Zika's already on it, and T1 are coming, so the fight is going to be on.
Have to be careful about locking themselves in the pit. Keep your eyes on Guma if he gets to the back line. Oner now stepping forward. Dragon Soul stolen, and now it's Gumayusi looking to tear through the entire team. Goes golden right to the back line. Zeus continuing to step up, but Zeka needs to be the difference maker. Zeka needs to hold on, but there are too many members free firing into the Gwen. Zeus stands strong on the back side of the fight, taking down so many members on the side of LNG.
And Zika tries heroically, but it's not enough. The steal comes through. T1 have the gold lead, and they're able to take a commanding lead. Only Keria ends up going down.
Busan erupts as T1 claim the soul, claim the ace, and claim the Baron, and you have to think they've claimed game 1 as well.
An incredible start to the series from T1. Showing us something new here on the world stage with the Nilah, but you can see the start of this fight, everything they could want, and it only gets better from the moment that Infernal is stolen.
Yeah, they're just not able to really do anything with this Blitzcrank. I mean, I'm not able to find an angle to engage. LNG so focused on trying to actually knock down this Dragon that Zika's not in a good position as the fight starts, and then GALA just gets tipped there, and as Hong hooks him, he hooks Zeus in. Thanks for the alley-oop. He slams it down on GALA.
And gentlemen, I'm not trying to flame anybody, but I don't think Hong is going to play Blitz again.
It's a self-ban angle.
It might be the self-ban angle.
Yeah, Blitz, as you pointed out at the beginning of the match, Azil, is very much, it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
And that was the first hook, Chronicler.
Miss.
Yeah.
That was the first hook. The first hit was a miss.
Yeah.
Or a hit if you're a T1 fan.
True. They might want more. They might say, let's run it back.
True, yeah.
Would be understandable, but look at the teamfight damage. Look at how many threats there are. The lethality Aatrox hitting like a truck, combined with the Nilah, combined with FLICKR, even on this super tanky build, still outputting so much damage. Hook not quite going to connect there onto Oner. He could feel the wind on his backside, but T1 just barreling down the bottom lane.
And honestly, it's just been a tough one for LNG because you lost topside around these engages at Herald, around this engage in mid lane. Your bot lane in the 2v2 doesn't really stand much of a chance. You're perma pushed in. So even once this Blitzcrank got out of lane, there wasn't much recourse for him, and T1 on the push. Zeus maybe in trouble.
Zeus off to the side, but LNG has to be careful about overcommitting. Zeus still just taunting them, teasing them. Blitzcrank, can the hook come out? Cataclysm locking him in. They will connect, but he pulls it back. Apotheosis! Gumayusi ascending to godhood in that moment as LNG are torn to shreds. T1 too far ahead. They make it look effortless.
It's a clean ace for T1. FLICKR shockwaves the minions just to speed up the demise of LNG. The Korean fans erupt here as T1 gonna claim game number 1.
Busan will not be silenced yet. incredible start for T1. LNG kicking themselves after that early game, and to be honest, it was a mess there as we got later and later into the game. Gonna have to go back to the drawing board as we get ready for game 2.
And coming into this game, for me, as I mentioned at the beginning, the most important player on the T1 side was Oner. How was he going to be able to play? And I think it was him and FLICKR, the combination of the Rell plus the Orianna, that ended up being really big. And then also on the flip side, Tarzan in particular, having a really rough game on the Jarvan. Like, they picked that away, which I think was the right call. But after a game like that, I don't know if you can do that a second time.
I mean, I think he had a bad game, but I also have to criticize Scout. I'm a massive Scout fan, but I don't think he was on point with his engages either. You know, the engage that he went in for over by the Herald fight did not work out. The one around mid lane did not work out either. And LNG have got to calm down, go back to the drawing board, because they just got absolutely rinsed by T1.
And it's super concerning when you look at the elation of those first 3 picks, how solid that looked for LNG, turning it into that performance that just did not match that initial assessment. Let's send things over to the analyst desk to talk a little bit more about that game 1.
Thank you so much, Dracos. Korea has put all their faith in FLICKR and T1, and they have delivered in game 1 at the very least. They have given everyone hope, I think, because what a shellacking they gave to LNG.
That was a beatdown, Shocks.
Whoa.
That was actually amazing. And it started in the draft. It was from draft all the way through the game. So well played by them. Massive, massive props here to T1 when all of the pressure is on. The entire country is looking intently at you, and T1 answered.
It does feel a little bit like a Scout after all this time, though, because that is probably some of the worst League of Legends I've seen that man play in a long, long time.
It felt like one of those movies where the student finally comes up to the master and they're like, all right, I'm ready to take down the master now.
Let's go, let's go.
And then they
No.
make mistakes.
Yeah, it was crazy. I
They
mean, it
make
started
massive
in the
mistakes.
laning phase, right? Exactly. Is that jitters? What is that?
It did look like it. I mean, so many of Scout's movements and his engages were really kind of off here. They even had the one where he goes in and then Tarzan goes in by himself and feeds another one over. It was kind of crazy how FLICKR remained calm the whole time. If you remember back to that Rift Herald fight they're talking about, FLICKR just walks away from Scout's engage, and then Tarzan as well. And Scout goes in and he whiffs.
And Scout fumbling that caused so many issues. Like, even in the get-go, that level 1, well, we had them where they had that split map. They were trying to play around Tarzan, who was maybe setting up a dive top, had found an advantage by clearing
what
it
is
for
this?
quadrant.
What is that?
And then whatever the hell happened after this, as you can see, just leads to this. I mean, it's a shellacking by T1, but I don't know what the thought process is there.
They're
Yeah,
sweating.
and there's no, like, this is so against what we're used to seeing from LNG domestically, right? Like, these are, like, obviously, T1, they came out, this is a statement victory for them, but there are also some highly questionable plays coming out of LNG that they did not have to make. And usually when they get set behind by other teams in the LPL, they play so controlled around, like, turtling for mid to late, and then they try to win in mid to late game team fights when they are on better item breakpoints or when they think they can set up. And the only kind of hint of that you saw was that kind of like tier 1 bot, tier 1 top trade when they gave up third Drake. But even then, like, this is just a lot of unforced errors from LNG that we're not used to seeing.
And I guess one of the big examples was the Herald fight where you all said, this is weird. Why are you going for this?
I mean, it is first Herald, which LNG do have a habit
Right. Love
of
it.
maybe overextending
True.
for, but I do agree. I mean, the fact that Scout's massively far behind, you don't even connect onto people that have damage. Zika had a leeching leer, which you don't actually want to try and fight on as the Gwen at this point. You don't connect except for the tank in this fight as Scout, and then you've just got no damage actually set up to try and clear for that. It was bizarre that they tried to take that fight after they'd just been set so far behind in the early stages.
And then for that to be followed by the mid lane play that we saw before this was just like, whoa.
Whoa, it was crazy. They seem out of sorts, right? LNG for now. That's something they're going to have to clean up. Let's take a look at the 24-minute Drake fight, which was the nail in the coffin. I know they were so far ahead, but Oner just walks in and takes it, by the way, even though they had the positioning.
This was so sick. Oner goes in with his crash down. Look at the rest of T1 on the follow-up engage, though, as well. They immediately take it, and Guma has bought a stopwatch for this. Goes in on the Nilah. shockwaves them himself.
It does feel like, though, when you get to this point of the game as T1, you're actually just untouchable. You have the Senna there for the healing. You've got the shield coming through. You got an Aatrox who's healing for days.
Yeah.
I mean, and even a Radiant Virtue was on the Rell. Like, no one's going to die on this squad when they're that far ahead at this stage. So they're happy to just walk in and take it.
Yeah, and this is where I actually would like to credit T1's red side draft. We've actually seen a lot of really interesting red side drafts coming out after blue side was so heavily favored earlier on in this tournament. And I love the Senna Nilah rotation. Like, we were kind of sitting here calling for her, like, Nilah, come on, Guma, like, you got to do it. And it was a really good place for it. And it also showcases something that we brought up initially, which is that in this kind of meta that a lot of the other LPL teams have brought to the table with some of these bot lanes, T1 are perfectly capable of playing in it. And you even saw LNG recognize that with the Caitlyn and Renata bans coming out on blue.
It was so smart because it was set up by yesterday. T1, or not yesterday, but when their last games, when they played BLG, they had 2 Tahm Kench games. So you think, all right, we're going to counter this Tahm Kench before they even pick it. Blitzcrank, so we could kill his shield and we could pull him in and get 2 for 1, and then they hit you with the Nilah. Not every team can do this. Nilah is a very rare champion, but I remember right when the champ came out, Guma was one of the pro players that spammed her in solo queue. When very few other players were putting the time, the work, the effort into it, Gumayusi put in that work on this champ to be able to have it so ready for this moment.
I actually thought it would be a pick that we saw more often, to be honest. Senna Nilah has been really, really strong. We saw it a lot of the Mia Masters. We saw that coming out there.
Yeah,
we know
from
that some of the LEC teams
Masters to World Quarterfinals.
But no, seriously, it's like something that the teams have been practicing, and I thought we'd see it a lot more sooner. But I think, as you say, it's a great response to a lot of what we're seeing in the meta at the moment, being able to confuse, draw that opportunity to bring out something that's a bit new to the stage, and they performed fantastically on it. Like, they were destroying the bot lane. They were up like 10 to 12 CS at a stage.
They did. It was phenomenal from T1 in this first game, but it is a best of 5, so we have to temper just a little bit. We're going to take a quick break and see if LNG can gear up for game 2.
Bringing in a new roommate to save money, is that the plan?
Say hi to Glenn from work.
Yeah, I think I have a much better plan. We switched to my plan from Verizon.
That is a good plan. Glenn?
Get my plan starting at just $25 when you bring your own phones. Plus, save when you add perks like the Disney Bundle. It's your Verizon.
Red Bull gives you wings.